Hello, it's the Crap Goth. My name is Pixie and welcome to my channel of randomness where you never know what you're going to get. Today is a questions with video, and for anyone who is not quite sure what that is, it is when I give you, the people across the world, the chance to ask me any 10 questions, literally anything. Personal, funny, anything at all goes. And today we have questions with Ronda. So please stay tuned to find out what she wants to find out, what she wants to ask, and also don't forget to hit that subscribe button and tick that little bell icon so you get notified every time a new video goes live. Okay, let's see what we've got today.
Hi Pixie, it's Ronda from Port Hope, Ontario, Canada. I'm talk to you about doing the 10 questions. So here we go. Question 1, and I'm going to be reading these from a piece of paper because I didn't want to forget anything. So question 1, coming from one parent of a child with a terminal illness to another who has lost your child to terminal illness, what were your initial feelings when you found out about it? Did you blame yourself? I know I blamed myself for the longest time.
Okay, so hi Ronda. So obviously, as you can gather, today's video is going to be quite serious, and I'm actually really glad that Ronda has actually reached out and asked me questions like this, because a lot of the questions with videos tend to be kind of things like, what's your favourite food, what did Captain KORI like, and all that kind of stuff, which is absolutely fantastic. Honestly, it's great. Literally, like I said, anything goes at all. If it's something which is super personal or anything, or something which is going to upset me, I will still answer it, but I'll just find a way around doing it that I'm comfortable with as well. So so first of all, Ronda, for reaching out and actually asking these questions is a huge brave thing to do. So, you know, well done for you for doing this. And I know that the situation you're in right now is really difficult because I've been there. Okay, so I'll try and crack on for you. So question 1, I've got everything written down on a piece of paper in front of me so I don't forget it as well. So question 1 was, from one parent to another of a child with a terminal illness, did I blame myself? How did I feel, etc. So did I blame myself? So I think on some level, I think yes, I did. I mean, he was born with a congenital heart defect called hyperplastic left heart syndrome. Now that I can't go too much into certain things, but it can literally happen to everybody. So yes, it can. You are have a, don't know how to say this really. You have an increased risk if one of your parents has a heart defect already, but it can literally happen to anybody. So I didn't feel guilty in that aspect, but what I did feel guilty for was I think later on in his life was thinking, should I have had him? And that is an awful thing to say, but that wasn't because I didn't want him or didn't love him. It was because literally I was told about his diagnosis when I was 20 weeks pregnant. I was taken into a hospital in Leeds, and I was part of this Leeds scandal as well, which was awful, where they basically told us to terminate our babies, and that told us that we were cruel to keep them alive and lots of different things. It's a whole thing, probably said on Google actually. I decided to have him, and we went through a lot of things, but not once did anybody ever tell me in any of our journey, up until he was about 5 years old when it was announced to us, that he would need a heart transplant. I had no idea that hyperplastic children would need a heart transplant. And he went through his first one, and that went surprisingly smoothly, as much as a transplant can. The second one was when I actually doubted myself, because I felt guilty for putting him through that, and like if I hadn't have had him, he wouldn't have be going through all the pain he was in. So in that aspect, yes, I blamed myself for making him suffer because I wanted to give him a chance. But in actual fact, a lot of it, I look back now and think, was I selfish to have him? But no, do you know something? No, it's not our fault. Like, when our children are born with illnesses and things, it is not our fault in the slightest. It really isn't, and it's so easy to sit here and blame ourselves as parents, because I think we take that on as parents to feel guilty and that we're responsible for everything. And something like this, it just is not our fault, and you can't blame yourself either. Honestly, there is absolutely nothing that we can do but love our children and be there for them when they need us. So please don't blame yourself. I don't blame myself anymore, and you shouldn't either.
Question 2. What research did you do to prepare yourself to help your child and yourself to cope, or even just to live? I know it's been hard for myself and for my daughter.
Okay, so question 2. What research did I do to help me or KORI to cope? So, to be honest with you, I didn't have to. So obviously, KORI was born with his condition, and he went lots and lots and lots of open heart surgeries. When I found out he was terminal, I refused to tell him. I did not want to tell him, which I know further on down the questions we're going to cover this as well. So the research I didn't really need to do it, because pretty much KORI had already been through 2 heart transplants, and when I was told that he would need a 3rd one, KORI had already made it very, very clear previously that he did not want to go through this. If this ever was to happen again, that he will never, ever, he would rather pass away than go through it again. So I already knew his wishes. When I was told that KORI was terminal, pretty much everybody came to me. So we found out whilst we were in Newcastle Hospital, and they were incredible. So KORI's favourite transplant nurse was called Terry, and he was absolutely fantastic with us, like brilliant with KORI, brilliant with me. And the information was freely provided to me about actually how KORI was liable to pass. Nobody could give us a timescale or anything like that. So I didn't go on Google, and I didn't do any of that because there wasn't any point. And we were then referred to a children's hospice, and actually they were full of information. So quite a lot of the times when KORI and I ended up going to stay at this children's hospice, which I didn't want to do, by the way, at all. I was really against it. Please go back and have a look on Crack in the Box, which I will link up to the description of this video, because KORI actually does a hospice tour himself. It's filmed on my old crappy tablet, so it's a bit crackly, but the film itself, it was really good. And they were brilliant, and they just kind of took me to one side a lot without KORI being there, and would explain things to me. So any questions I had, I just kind of like asked the nurses there. I would honestly strongly suggest that you do not go looking on Google for anything, because every single person who is terminal is kind of going through something different. Even if it's the same illness, there's no guarantee that your outcome is going to be the same, or that the passing of your child or your loved one is going to be exactly the same as the person. So like KORI's passing was very traumatic for me, because although I knew a lot of how it could happen, I didn't expect it to happen the way it did. And that was very traumatic. And I think you can actually go and scare yourself. So if you go looking up too much information, you can scare yourself silly. You can put all kinds of scenarios in your head. And so we didn't really go looking. When KORI asked me, because I refused to tell him, when he said to me, "Mummy, am I going to die early?" I had to say yes. And that was about 3 months after I found out he was terminal, because I said that I wouldn't tell him unless he actually asked me the question, because I didn't want to frighten him. He's only 11. And then we didn't really speak about it, as in sit down and have in-depth conversations about the fact that, he knew it was going to happen. He didn't know when, and we would do things in a roundabout way. So it was kind of, I just told him that I would always be there, no matter what happened, no matter when, no matter what, no matter how, like whatever, whether he was in hospital, in the hospice, or at home, I would be with him. He would never be alone. I did ask him his wishes kind of like towards the end of his life, kind of like, if you were to fall asleep, that's what we called it, a magic sleep. How would you like it? And he said, like, I want to be with you, and I want to be with Ebony, which is his big sister. He wants to be at home with his teddy bears in his bed, and that is exactly what happened. And we were very kind of lucky in that way that it happened that way. So because he was a child, we had very indirect conversations about it. So, when one of the things I do remember was walking with my support worker. We had KORI in the wheelchair, and we used to go into town quite a lot with my support worker, because I can't go out alone. It's because of my mental health issues. And we would walk past the cemetery. That was literally the way into town. And I just kind of dropped it into casual conversation. "Oh, when it's my time, I want this big gothic angel, and but she's got to have pink boots on," kind of thing, on my headstone. "What would you have?" And I asked my support worker, and she said, because she knew what I was doing, she said something. I said, "KORI, what would you have?" And he said, "I'd have this pirate one. I'd have Captain KORI." And so I kind of got to know his wishes indirectly, and we did things that way. So yeah, we didn't really do research, but we kind of dropped things into casual conversation and made small talk about it so I could find out his wishes and I'd write them down. Don't Google. Do not Google. Talk to other parents, talk to people who've been through it, but do not go on the internet. I think that's probably the worst thing anybody can do. So research, I really didn't. I just went with it.
Number 3, and this one was something that I found hard to deal with. How did you deal with doctors who told you, no, you have to do this, when you knew your child would do better another way you believed and trusted more?
Okay, so this is actually a really good one to ask. Okay, so number 3 is, how did I deal with doctors when I wanted to do things a different way, basically? So this actually covers a broad spectrum of things, should I say. So we have had a difference of opinion with doctors in different hospitals. So when KORI was in one of the hospitals, not Newcastle, but another one, one of the things I really hated, and I would really like to see a change, I want to see this change now because it is really not on, it really made me angry, even to this day it makes me angry, was when KORI was semi-conscious, so he could still hear, really, but you know, he was on a breathing tubes and all that kind of stuff, and he was not very well. This was back in 2019, just before he had his second heart transplant. He was in intensive care, which was a big area, and the doctors would all come round his bed and they'd all be discussing things with all the medical students and everything. And KORI had been through his whole life, even though he was only 11, he went through his whole life knowing medical terminology. So anyone mentioned surgeons, surgical procedures or kidneys or certain meds, he would hear them. Like he wouldn't be able to respond because of the meds he was on. He was on like ketamine and all sorts. It's awful. And you'd see tears rolling down his face. And I find that, as much as they probably don't intend it, that the doctors and surgeons, especially the senior ones, tend to forget that these are children who are not stupid. You know, like these are children who can still hear, and they get very frightened, and that they're not just medical, you know, like, because KORI had a very complex heart condition, he would have medical students all of the time coming in. Even if he was in hospital for a routine checkup in a local hospital, he would have medical students popping in every half an hour. Oh, can such and such listen? And most of the time he was great, but some of the time he got really pissed off with it, you know. And I think so in the end, when KORI was really poorly in hospital, I ended up saying, can you just discuss things away from his bedside? Do not stand around his bed in a bunch of like you're 20 talking about everything to do with my son, because he can hear you and he's frightened and he doesn't, you know, it's just not right. I mean, I understand them needing to check him out, but they were literally having this big conversation about KORI's medical procedures and what his outcome is and what they're going to do. And I'm like, just get out. And it ended up being like, I ended up having an argument with them at one point, and they eventually did move out, but they weren't very happy about it. And I stood my ground and I was like, no. And then he got moved to a second hospital, which again wasn't Newcastle, and he was in an individual room in intensive care. And they actually put a sign up on the door to say, like, do not discuss anything medical in here, because KORI would get very distressed. And another thing we had a bit of an argument about was the fact that KORI was nil by mouth. This was again not in Newcastle. It was one of the hospitals he was in. He was nil by mouth. He was not allowed to eat for literally months. He was like a skeleton by the end of his stay. Because his body just couldn't handle food, and the nurses would have cans of Coke on the nurses station, which was literally at the end of his bed. Like every bed had its own kind of like nurses like bit where they had the pads and all the, you know, all the medical equipment and all the phones and stuff like that. But they'd have like food and drink there, and like KORI could see these drinks, and he'd be like crying because he was so thirsty, and he wasn't allowed anything apart from like a wet sponge around his mouth. And I thought that was disgusting, and I hated that. I hated them. I argued with them when he went to another hospital, and because he was bedbound and he was extremely ill, he had to wear an adult nappy. But obviously he'd got a little sister, Ostara. She was only in nappies herself, and rather than just calling them a pad, like, bear in mind, KORI was 11 years old at the time. You know, 10 actually at that point. They would say like, you know, we're just going to put you a new nappy on, and I'd have to say, stop, it's not a nappy or a diaper in your case, you know, if you're in America, or you're in Canada, but you know what I mean, you know, I'd say it's a pad, just call it a pad. I'd leave the room and say, look, don't talk to him like he's a baby. Like I think people just presume these children are fine with, you know, I mean, they're like 11, 12, 13 years old. They don't want to be put into nappies. It's degrading for them, and I think like they need to some medical professionals need to realise that these are not all babies they're dealing with. These are teenagers or like older children who are much older than their years mentally. So I had a lot of disagreements about that as well. But one of the ones that I had a disagreement with, which was in Newcastle, but they did respect my decision. They really did, but they disagreed with me. And that was when I found out KORI was terminal, and I was absolutely devastated, and they wanted me to tell him. And I was like, no. And they said it's in his best interest to know. And I was like, don't you fucking dare. And I think I probably did get quite angry. And I was like, and I mean, I had a fantastic relationship with everyone in Newcastle Hospital. And I think they were just looking out for kind of KORI's best interest. But as his mum, I knew he would be terrified to know that he wasn't going to survive. And there was no frigging way I was letting anybody tell him. I think at even one point I probably did say, like, I'd sue you. If you say anything, I'll sue you. I wouldn't have done it, but I was so angry. Like, this is my child, my decision, and you will respect it. And I literally forbid anybody, social services who were involved, because obviously you have to be with a kid like who's ill. I forbid anybody to tell him that he was terminal, and I would have literally, I'd have kicked off. So yeah, we had a few disagreements, and I stood my ground on quite a few items. But in all, the doctors were very respectful. I stayed with him pretty much all of the time, so he wasn't like left on his own for hours with a nurse. I would stay there from like sun up till sundown and until midnight if I could. So genuinely, people were fantastic. But if you have an issue, don't be afraid to raise it, because at the end of the day, you're their parent, and nobody, I don't care who they are, nobody knows your child better than you. So if you feel there's something wrong, don't feel you're wasting their time by asking them to like triple check something, because they could have missed something. Or if you feel that your child's being treated in a way that they don't deserve, or that the baby talked to, or anything like that, stand up, stand your ground. And if you can't verbally say it, write a note and leave it with the head nurse. Just make your feelings known, because it's worse looking back wishing you'd said something at the time. But yeah, honestly, yeah, I've had my fair share of being a gobby cow. But you know something, it's needed. And yeah, never be afraid to ask questions, or to ask for a second opinion, or a third, or a fourth.
Question 4. Do you ever regret anything or treatment you tried or never tried?
Okay, so number 4, do I regret treatment we tried or didn't try? So, oh my gosh, so legally, am I allowed to say this on camera? Probably not, no, but I don't care, because I'm going to anyway. I'm not going to name the hospital, but I truly believe not Newcastle Hospital. They were, I keep saying not Newcastle because they were absolutely fantastic, and we consider everybody at Newcastle to be like part of our family. Absolutely incredible. At one of the hospitals which KORI attended, a very, very, very simple procedure was done, which I didn't find necessary. Not a surgical procedure. He needed a drip after a case of sickness and diarrhoea. And I'm not going to mention the hospital for legal reasons or anything else, because I'll probably get myself into trouble. But he was given an insane amount of fluids, and he went into heart failure. So I blame that hospital for him passing away. I haven't mentioned them, so yeah. I regret taking KORI into hospital that day to have something so simple done, which he has done. He had done every 4 weeks, because it went wrong, because they gave him something that I didn't feel they needed to do, because we had it under control, and I'm very, very angry about it. I can't do anything about it, and yeah, I've made my feelings very well known on that matter, and I'm not allowed to legally say anything. So yeah, I regret taking him in, because I think if I hadn't have taken him in, I think he'd still be here now. Genuinely, I do. But I can't prove it, so like, not properly anyway. So anyway, treatment we didn't try. No, not really, because we literally tried everything. KORI had 2 heart transplants, which we are oh my gosh, so eternally grateful for the donors for. Grateful to all of the medical teams who tried to save him, and who put so many years, I mean, throughout his whole life he was in and out of hospital. So like, you know, thank God for the NHS. Seriously, like, we are so utterly grateful. We tried literally everything. I even got to the point when KORI was when I was told KORI was terminal, I mean, I was a mess and saying all kinds of stuff which probably doesn't make sense to most people. I even said, can you not euthanize me, and cut my heart out and my kidneys because he was in heart and kidney failure and give him to KORI. I want to save him. I'll do anything for him. And they're like, it doesn't work that way, Pixie. Can't do that. So we literally tried everything, and in the end it was KORI's decision, and I was not going to go against his wishes because he's not my body, and he really suffered on his second transplant. So I regret taking him into hospital, yes, that one of the hospitals, for something simple, but we tried everything to save him, and yeah, I don't regret anything else. We tried everything.
Number 5, your life has always been geared around KORI. How do you find yourself dealing with day-to-day life now?
Okay, so question 5. How do I deal with day-to-day life now? Honestly, I don't. I really don't. And I get pissed off with people telling me to put one foot in front of the other, and they say people mean well and people are wonderful and they'll reach out and it's lovely, and I don't think people know what to say. And unless they've lost a child themselves, they can't possibly know what it's like. Honestly, do you know what I do? I get up every day late because KORI was regimented with his medicines, and so I had to be up early in the morning, and a lot of the time John would do them as well if I was really ill or really tired. But I get up late because I sometimes don't go to bed at all, or I'll crawl to bed, or John will have to physically take me to bed, put me into bed at like 7 o'clock in the morning. He'll do the school runs. I come downstairs a couple of hours later because I can't sleep because of nightmares or whatever, and I'll be bawling my eyes out in my pyjamas, and I'll just lie on the sofa crying all day. It's pretty much, and it's been a year. It was a year yesterday. I am useless most of the time. I've lost kind of like my purpose in life, even though I have a little girl who's 6, Ostara, and Ebony who's 21, and I've got my husband as well, and I don't, honestly, you just do. You wake up breathing, and so you don't have a choice. It's the same as KORI and his illness. Like, he didn't have a choice about kind of like coping. He just had to. And it's the same with me. Like, and I've been in the psychiatric unit, and I'm under a psych team now. I've had the crisis team out literally days ago. I have days when I don't want to be here, and I sob and I cry and I question the world, and I hate the world, and I get angry, and I go into KORI's bedroom and hold onto his things and sob, and you know, I don't deal with life. I don't deal with it, and I think that's the thing. You know, I just survive. I just happen to wake up breathing, and I think some days, most days are like that. Is it going to get better? I don't know. I honestly don't know. Right now, I know it gets worse for me. Every day it gets worse because every day I realise it's another day, and the year, and every anniversary, and every day, and it's just. I don't manage. I'm not managing. I'm not coping. I openly say right now I'm not coping, and I haven't even had any counselling. It's rubbish.
Question number 6. I also have a spouse who has depression and deals with the daily struggles. What have you sought out for help and support system to help you cope?
Okay, question 6 actually brings us on to that, actually. So what help have I sought to cope? Wow, do you want to, right, we're going to go into this one, aren't we? So this is really, so I don't know if anyone else is going to be in this situation. There's got to be. Obviously, I'm in the UK, things are different. So most people are told, apparently, that there is a natural grieving process of 6 months, which I think is whatever the medical professionals say, they must know what they're talking about. I don't know. But apparently the body has a natural process of 6 months, so you have to wait for 6 months. It's fucking stupid, if you ask me. Basically then I was told that I would have all this support in place, because obviously I'm mentally fragile anyway. I'm not very mentally stable at the best of times, let alone know my child was going to die, going through everything we went through in his whole life, and then watching him die in my arms. So obviously, as you can imagine, I went to pieces. I was made to wait for 6 months, and we did have help to do things such as lovely people from the hospice stepped in and took me to help sign his death certificate, which was awful. But when it comes to counselling stuff, I've had none because I don't qualify. So because I am not mentally stable, because I have mental health issues, because I was in crisis, I am not allowed to have grief counselling, psychology, which I was receiving before KORI passed away, or anything else. So in order to have grief counselling, you have to not be in crisis, which I am at the moment, and you have to be mentally stable, which I'm not, because I've got a mental illness. I'm schizophrenic, I've got anxiety, PTSD, everything else from before as well. So I can't have grief counselling because I'm not mentally stable. But I can't until I've had grief counselling, I can't have psychology, because you have to. That's just the way it goes. And because I'm not mentally stable now, and I am grieving so heavily, and I am in crisis, and I might look together now, but believe me, I sobbed my heart out off camera. Basically, I've had no help at all. I've got a CPN who is absolutely lovely. She is so nice, and she does visit. I also have a lovely, I will say a support worker. That's not actually her official role, but I have a lovely support worker. But when it comes to therapy, mental health, kind of grief counselling, anything like that, I've had absolutely nothing. I'm still waiting. Apparently there's a 3-year waiting list for psychology. There's up to 2-3 year waiting list for grief counselling as well. So yeah, at the moment, I have had nothing. And the way I cope is I often don't. And but I will sit and I'll make a YouTube video or a podcast, and or I'll just lie down on the floor crying, saying that I don't want to be here anymore, which is usually when my psych team will step in, and that's when I ended up in hospital and things like that. So I don't really cope very well. I'm still waiting to have counselling, which I want, but can't get it because I'm not mentally stable. So yeah, that's a bit of a stupid system, isn't it?
Number 7. Also, did you always rely on KORI's wants when it came to his treatment or non-treatment?
Right, okay, question 7. Did I always rely on KORI's wants for treatment or non-treatment? So no, I didn't. KORI was very feisty, terrified of needles, like beyond terrified of needles. He would scream the place down. He would have to be pinned down, and obviously I knew that he needed it. So he needed to have blood tests. He needed to have scans that he didn't want. So a lot of the time, when he was a baby, they don't really understand what's going on, so that's the easy part. But when they become conscious of the fact they're going to have surgery, they're going to need needles all of the time, they've got to have scans, and they have to push onto the chest, which has been cut open numerous times. So his whole chest was extremely tender. He couldn't bear, so if you notice the videos, he just wore fluffy things. He couldn't bear anyone to touch his chest very much, and he hated it, and he'd scream. And many a times he's locked himself in bathrooms, in hospitals. If the hospital staff are watching now, they'll know this. He has punched me in the face before. He's kicked off. He's screamed, and I've had to hold him down, not as in pin him down to be mean, but literally like cuddle him whilst they get blood from him and things like that. So because it's what he needed. They needed to know his levels for his liver, kidneys, his heart, and all that kind of stuff. So yes, there's some things that he didn't have a say in. Like, he needed to have procedures done, he needed to have certain things done. When it came to the fact that he needed a second transplant, it was my call, because KORI was literally life or death. He was on life support. He was on the Berlin hearts, which is mechanical hearts. He had 2 of those, and he was really critically unwell, and they came to me and said, we've got another heart, do you want him to have it? And it's like, yes. And that was my call, thinking the first one had gone really smoothly, so it was all right. Actually, the second time around was absolutely horrific, and he ended up having to have pacemakers, tracheostomies. He couldn't eat for almost half a year. He was literally a skeleton. He needed to learn to breathe properly, again without tracheostomy. I had to learn to suction his tracheostomy, change his dressings. He had to learn to walk, talk, eat, breathe, stand, and he'd been in bed for so long, and he literally was a skeleton, that he had to put him, it's like inversion tables you get where you go backwards. It was like one of those, but it was like they had to strap him in literally everything, his shoulders, his waist, his hips, his ankles, and very slowly each day they'd tip it up a little bit more. They'd get him out of bed on a hoist, and he was crying in agony, and literally hoist him up bit by bit to get his body used to weight bearing again. So we had to do a lot. That was my choice. So when it came to the fact that they said to us, he's terminal, his only chance now is a 3rd transplant, I let him make that decision. And he had already said, I will never do this again. And he'd made it very clear, very, very clear. And because he's under 12, by law, I could have overridden his decision. But he'd been assessed by the hospice that we went to, and he was compos mentis for an 11-year-old. So he knew exactly what he wanted. And so that was not for me to take that decision away. That was his body. And that is the one time that I did not stand up against him. I could have overridden it. I could have made him have a 3rd transplant. He could have survived it, but he would have hated me for it. He never would have trusted me again. So that is entirely his decision. He knew he was going to pass if he didn't have it, and I loved him enough to let him go. And that is the hardest, singular most hardest decision I have ever made in my life. But it was his choice, it was his body, and it wasn't mine to make that decision for him.
Question 8. How did yours and your family's life change with his diagnosis? Good, bad? Did you become closer, or did it drive a wedge between and everyone? If it hadn't been for my daughter's diagnosis, because it changed every aspect of our life. I got divorced, and it led us to who we have now, our wonderful, my husband adopted my children. So I have a wonderful husband, and my children have a wonderful father now.
Right, okay, so question 8. How did our lives change with KORI's diagnosis, for the good, the bad, and all that kind of stuff? So it changed dramatically. Obviously, as you can imagine, when they first told us he was terminal, it was devastating. He had no idea, absolutely no idea at all. So what I did, and this is, I really recommend this to everybody, is I immediately, when I found, the day I found out he was terminal, we were still in hospital for a few weeks until we got discharged home. I went onto Amazon and I clicked those, I bought one of those hand casting kits that come in the buckets where you hold hands with someone and you put your hands in, and we did it. And I told him, just because I wanted to do some cool arts and crafts with him, and I started buying things off Amazon, like fingerprint kits and all that kind of stuff, you know, like rainbow ink pads and plain paper. And we'd get him to dip his fingers in each one of the ink pads and just dot it across the paper wherever he felt like it. And when he was asleep, I'd sit and draw petals around his fingerprints, because I knew he was going to pass away at some point, and I wanted as many things as a reminder as I could. But the hand casting kit was one of the things, the first things that I ever bought. And we did it together. We held hands together, kind of like, I've got your questions, like that, and dipped it upside down, obviously in a bucket. And then obviously, you know, the play team at the hospital helped us to do that. And I got to take that home with me, and it's still wrapped up on a bed now in a hospital towel, you know, to keep it safe. Then he couldn't. Then when he finally knew about it, he couldn't cope with it at all, and he actually tried to take his own life by running in front of a lorry. And it was awful and it was horrendous. And then something miraculous happened, which was YouTube. And we applied to Make-A-Wish, and he wanted to talk to or meet with Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp responded in true style. I did a video call with him. Not only did that change him and his whole attitude, but Johnny then went on to make a video actually supporting KORI's YouTube channel, allowed us to put it onto KORI's YouTube channel, which again is Crack in the Box. You'll find it in the description of the video with the Johnny Depp video. Go and find it. And then KORI's YouTube channel shot to fame. He shot to fame, and all of a sudden he had a platform, and that, if KORI wasn't terminally ill, and if Make-A-Wish and Johnny hadn't have stepped in, and then everyone stepped in, all the YouTubers like Popcorn Planet, Beau of the Fifth Column, all the law tubers, all of you guys as well, everybody, that is when his life changed, and that is when things became really amazing. We knew what was going to happen, but we were living in this bubble, and that bubble is what has brought you here. It's what's brought everyone here. So all through something so tragic came something so beautiful, that actually I have never seen him more alive in his last months of life than when he was when he was a YouTuber. Honestly.
Number 9. Also, I know Spanky wasn't KORI's biological father, but you'd never have known it. Same as my husband's not my children's biological father, but he adopted them. How is Spanky coping with KORI's loss? I know my husband and our daughter are extremely close, and it would destroy him when something happens.
Hello. So your question was, how am I dealing with the loss of KORI? Well, I believe you're asking this because I'm a step parent and your partner is a step parent as well. Whether they're bio or non-bio, it's shit. I haven't got the 24/7 grieving that Pixie's got, where she's suffering deeply pretty much dawn till dusk. I get the little reminders every now and again, like sights, sounds, smells, music, random bits and pieces, just little glimmers of stuff, are the ones that hit home, and they can hit quite hard. I have to keep everything together as normal. Obviously I'm Pixie's carer as well, so I try and make sure she's okay. I look after Astara. On occasion it really pisses her off, the fact that I don't show much emotion at times. I used to just come into my little garage room and hide away from everything and have a little mini breakdown in here instead. But then we had a chat and realised that that wasn't helpful to either of us, because it genuinely did look like I didn't care, and that wasn't beneficial. The day-to-day's quiet. It's strange. It's something that you prepare for, but you're never prepared for. And it's terrible, to put it simply, but we've gone through our natural grieving process of 6 months, and so Astara is apparently getting some sort of help through school. Ebony's got help through university. Local mental health have taken me on, and originally it was for talking therapy for something, and then they kind of changed their mind and said you could do with counselling, so put me forward for that, which I find ridiculous, the fact that I got it before Pixie. But that's a whole different story. I've been for one session so far. It was very unusual, not something I've ever thought about before, but because lost in the past, like I lost my dad through cancer, and that was just get my head down and carry on. Don't really dwell on it, just, you know, do the stiff upper British lip thing and all that bullshit, and it really, really, really doesn't help. Talking does. I say a lot, but yeah, it took a long time, and there was periods of time that were harder than others. There was times when Pixie really didn't like me, but we stuck together, we stuck through it, and like I say, talking helps. We've had a number of times where we just stand in the kitchen and just reminisce, talk about feelings, and on occasion have a joint little breakdown. But yeah, it's different from anything else I've ever experienced before, and it's something that feels different than anything I've ever felt before. It's horrendous, basically. Yeah. It takes a lot to get through. But if you talk to each other and you stand by each other, you'll make it.
Question number 10. Okay, I brought everything way down in this video, so to lighten things up, what made Whippy so special to KORI and yourselves?
Okay, so question 10. What made Whitby special to KORI and ourselves? So I will say this now, that Spanky did not like Whitby. He hated it, in fact, for a long time. I think he only realised he actually liked it after we lost KORI, and we went a month after we lost KORI and we went with Jamie Barnes, who flew over from North Dakota, and it was brilliant. It was lovely. Whitby was special to me. So I've been going for many years before I even met up with John. So I met John in 1998. We lost touch for 18 years and then we got back together. So in between those stages, I was going to Whitby every single year to the Goth festival with my friends. It was absolutely incredible. Obviously I fell pregnant with KORI, and I used to take KORI as well. And he loved it because there was pirate ships there, and there was lots of goths. And obviously I wasn't a pastel goth at that point, which I class myself as now. I was like proper hardcore goth, like, you know, black corsets, black lipstick, loads of piercings, big rock boots and stripy tights and all. And so there was, all of a sudden there was thousands of people, just the same as Mummy, and he loved it, and it was great. And he was like doing like black sandcastles and black ice creams, because he used to do like black buckets for sandcastles. And so he got to love Whitby through like the love of goths and pirates, which is basically what it was. And then basically as he got older, we formed a friendship group with a lot of people, and we went there and we stayed in the same place every single time at St John's Apartments, in the same apartment on a rolling booking, and he absolutely loved it. He just loved it. And then we got to know people who lived there, and then my Auntie Sue and Uncle Kev moved there, and then we wanted to move there. This is a whole different story really, but during Corey's second transplant, one of the things he said was, "Mum, please can we move to Whitby?" Because he'd survived something so serious and he wanted to move to Whitby. And so John and I started looking at houses, and we found this beautiful place. Actually, it was amazing. It got a paddock and everything. So we wanted goats. We wanted like a small holding. And it wasn't in Whitby itself. It was just on the outskirts. But it was in like a 5-minute drive into the town. And you know, I don't really care really, because I've not really got this whole anything to like lose now. But a previous relationship didn't go well at all, and the person involved took me to court, and they slapped a 5-year prohibited steps order on me, stopping me from basically moving to Whitby, even though it's only 2.5 hours away from where we live right now. It's accessible through all public transport, and so we never were able to move to Whitby. I'm mentioning no names, so I can't get into any trouble. But yeah, so we never made it to Whitby. We never got to live there. We never got to live out our dream. Corey never got to have his dream because of what happened in court. But as it happens, you know, we've got this beautiful house here, this beautiful studio. So actually everything worked out okay anyway. We've got this gorgeous garden, and, you know, we're happy here. So, you know, but yeah, he just loved it. He loved the Abbey. He loved the Goth festivals. He loved the black ice cream, which makes you poo black as well, which he found quite funny. And it was just a case of meeting up with loads of friends as well. And we had favourite spots that he loved in Whitby. So the Dolphin Pub, he loved to go there. We'd go there for dinner. He'd go on ride on his favourite donkey called Coco. That donkey's been going for so many years. Like we had a suspicion that it wasn't the same donkey. They just put the same bridle on it, kind of thing, with the names on it. So he thought he was riding Coco every single year, because that was a very old donkey otherwise. And we'd go collecting fossils, and we'd go like, he'd get crabs and run across the beach and chase me with crabs and all sorts. I'm terrified of crabs. I hate them. But yeah, but Whitby to me, the reason I loved it was because obviously it was somewhere that I'd been going to for absolutely years, since my big girl was little. And I used to go with my friends, and then obviously my mum and dad went, and I stayed with them in this amazing place, which we then took over because I lost my mum in an accident. And then the year after, we took over their booking, because that's just a whole new story. But basically I have family connections there, I've got friends connections there, and it was somewhere we went every year, and it is still such a place that is so dear to our hearts. My absolute dream would be to win the lottery and to buy a static caravan or a little property in Whitby, North Yorkshire, so that we've got somewhere to go all the time. Spanky wants a camper van, because that means we can just drive anywhere we want, and we've got you know, so we're gonna work our asses off, play the lottery, and hope one day to own a camper van, so we can just go and have somewhere to stay. We can drive to Whitby as much as we want and go into the beaches and stuff. But yeah, it's just a beautiful place. It's lovely. And if you've never been to Whitby, North Yorkshire, go. There's a Goth festival twice a year, April and October. The people are incredible. It's a lovely atmosphere. There's a lot of peacocking going on, so you know, there's a lot of like very fancy outfits and stuff like that, and but it's really, really cool. I was one of those people who got dressed up as well, which is brilliant. So yeah, he just loved it. He loved it. And there is actually, I'll see if I can find it and attach it to the end of the video. Actually, there was a picture of KORI and myself dressed up in post-apocalyptic gear, and we went off for a photo shoot and stuff, and he absolutely loved it, which is why I got these two little lines tattooed across my nose, because that's what I drew on for the post-apocalyptic day with KORI. So yeah, it was just brilliant, really. Absolutely lovely.
It's never been my intent to upset you with these questions, but like I said in the beginning, as one parent to another, you know, my daughter is terminally ill and she still struggles from day to day. I never wanted to upset you. I really admire your bravery and your strength. I hope I can have it when it's my daughter's time.
Okay, so thank you so much for asking all those questions, and obviously you have apologised and kind of said like you hope you didn't upset me. So obviously this is a very, very emotional thing to talk about, and I'm trying really hard not to cry, but it's you didn't upset me at all. I think questions like this need to be asked, and I think that there is so much that people don't tell you. The recommendations for me to you now from one mum of a terminally ill child to another is probably do all the things you're still doing. So take lots of photos if you can. Even I did this even without KORI knowing. Sometimes was I'd just voice record him. If I was having a conversation, I put my phone in my pocket and just voice record him, just so I could listen back to his conversations. Because, you know, for the camera for Facebook, obviously it's a bit different for you, but we were like YouTubers, so everything was very like staged and, you know, not, you know, kind of like for the camera, but just having those casual conversations was nice. Getting as much memorabilia as you possibly can, like locks of hair and kind of, you know, like I said, you know, getting your little fingerprints and making art out of them so you can put them in, you know, on the wall. Pick flowers together and then you know, take pictures of them holding the flowers and then press them and put them into frames. And I'm trying to think everything else I did. Obviously the hand casting kits that we did as well. Get them to do arts and crafts as well, because it's another memory you've got together. And if you can do, you know, film things together, then that's great. Take selfies and little videos of her brushing her hair, and it's the basic, you know, the basic stuff. Write things down, keep a diary. One of my biggest regrets is that I didn't keep a diary. Now I usually keep a diary every single year. I even bought one for this year so I could keep one post losing KORI. And I look back and think, gosh, what did we do? Like, I wish I'd have, like, documented things, even the mundane things, like he's kicked off today because he doesn't want to wear his socks, and you know, it's the little things like that. And you forget the small stuff, like, you know, you forget certain phrases they say. Like KORI would never say love you. If I say love you, he'd go love too. It like it's in love you too, but never say love you too. Just say love too. And it was little things like that. And so if you can do things together, make things together, you're obviously making memories. And I will say this now, that you will never be prepared for what's going to happen. You can't. You think you can prepare, you think that you've got everything sorted, and nothing ever prepares you for it, honestly. And it's not always the big anniversaries that people say, the birthdays, the Christmases, they are the hard ones. For KORI, we still put out a stocking for him, and you know, things like that. It's but nothing will prepare you. You will not, honestly, I promise you now, you will absolutely go to pieces. And everyone handles it in different ways. And I went into shock for a while. And like I said, like, you know, as Spanky said, I wouldn't speak, I fell out with him, I wouldn't speak to him. And it was just, I didn't want anyone to touch me, and I didn't want anyone to speak to me. And you will have a lot of people probably trying to advise you on how to grieve. I had some friends who wanted me, as soon as KORI passed away, to break down in tears and on them, and they wanted to come and visit me, and I just wanted to tell the word to F off. You know, I was like, don't visit me, don't speak to me. And I knew that if I went to pieces before his funeral, I'd end up in the local psych hospital, or worse. So everybody deals with things differently, but just, as Spanky says, just talk. If you can, talk to your husband, talk to your children, talk if you want to. I shut down for a long time, and like I did not want people to talk to me. I was handling it in my way, and my way was to go into my own head and just want to be with KORI. And now this is a really in-depth video, so I made a video called Grief and Loss, and it's on this channel. Go back and have a look. And that was after losing my son, and it goes into depth about things that they don't tell you after someone passes away, especially your child, because I was determined I was going to do everything for him after he passed, and there's certain things that people don't tell you. If you want to go and watch that, make sure you probably don't want to do it within the vicinity of your daughter hearing or anything like that. But yeah, that is another big one. But don't be hard on yourself. Don't put any expectations on yourself. Don't feel guilty. None of this is your fault. You are doing absolutely everything that you can possibly do now. Be there for her, cuddle her, love her, support her, but you make sure that you've also got that in place, because make sure if there are waiting lists for grief counselling, that you get your name down, even if you don't want to do it there and then. And if it's an NHS, like we have the NHS over here, I know things are quite, you have to pay for things over there, I think. Get your name down on this if you can, if it's something you want to do, because, you know, although you might not want it there and then, 6 months down the line you might want it. It's okay to lie in bed all day and cry and have snot running down your face and just tell everyone to F off because you don't want to see anybody. Or you might find, you know, you want to be outside, or however you cope is up to you. Don't let anybody tell you how to grieve. And I think that's one of the things that I had a lot of. There is this expectation of time frames, which is a load of bollocks. It's ridiculous. There are no time frames. There's not a 6-month time frame cut-off period, that, you know, none of this. Okay, you won't be grieving for the rest of your life. I know I definitely will. I'm a year in, and some parents cope, and I'm not one of them. Not one of them at all. So whatever you need to do, you go and do. There is no expectations, and it's okay to be angry, it's okay to be upset, it's okay to not want to get dressed and not want to eat and drink, and it's not okay not to shower for 3 weeks if you don't want to, because guess what? I didn't, no, not the eating and drinking thing, but I didn't sleep 3 days, and I definitely didn't shower for several weeks. I just didn't want anybody to be near me or anything else. So what you are facing is the hardest thing in the world, and it's the not knowing when, isn't it? So just take it easy on yourself, and that's the best advice I can give you, is you handle things your own way. And I'm here for whenever you need me. You know, I will drop you my email address so you can contact me at any point. And then, yeah, if anybody else is going through this and they want to also reach out as well, you can obviously comment on my videos. We have a Facebook page. I have a Facebook page called The Crap Goth. You can reach out to me on there. You can DM me on there. My name's Pixie Winter Traverstville, which you'll see pop up on the Crap Goth page. That's me. You are welcome to DM me. You know, this is a really hard journey, and no one can prepare you for it. And just go easy on yourself. That's the only thing I can say. And thank you so much for feeling strong enough to actually ask these questions, because that is extremely brave of you. So I'm not going to do the normal, you know, spiel I do at the end of every one of my videos, because I don't feel it's very appropriate. But what I will say is that my love goes out to you and your family. I'm here if you want to talk. You can ask me any questions, no matter how hard you think it is. You can message me day or night, and as soon as I get that message, I will answer you, okay? Just look after yourself, because as people keep telling me, if you don't look after yourself, you can't look after your children. You've got to absolutely love it, haven't you, when your camera just cuts out for no reason when you're trying to be serious. So yeah, I'm sorry about that. My camera just decided to stop then. I usually blame KORI for that kind of stuff, but yeah. Thank you so much for submitting these questions. I know it can't have been easy. Look after yourself. Try and eat, drink, sleep, all the stuff that I'm not doing currently. But obviously you need to keep your strength up for everything. And like I said, I'm here for you, and my family is here for you if you ever need to talk. So yeah, take care of yourself. And if anybody would like to take part in these questions with, like I said, it doesn't have to be serious. It can be anything. Please contact me through the Crap Goth. Talk to me first about it, and I will explain how to go about it, because there is a certain way of doing it. And then, yeah, we will sort out getting your video up on this channel, because it's really nice to talk to you all, and it brings this community closer as well. So yeah, look after yourself, take care, and I'm sending you lots and lots of love. Okay. you.